Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are and you still have the courage to watch this. Good evening. In this case, in Tel Aviv, I'm here with Yonatan Sorochkin. Yonatan, welcome to my show.
Thank you.
So, get yourself known to my audience.
Okay, so my name is Yonatan, or Jonathan in English. I'm Chief of Staff of the Likud Liberals, which is a caucus that promotes liberal policy in the Likud party in Israel. I do some lobby, public outreach. I also a researcher at Kohelet Institute, which is an independent research institute, sort of like Cato, which is, but here we're not affiliated politically. And that's about it for now, or have I forgotten anything?
Oh, well,
I live here in Tel Aviv, I'm 36. I'm single, so if there are any ladies that are watching,
it has gotten increasingly cheaper to fly into Tel Aviv, so it should be easy.
So, yes.
Right. The reason I insisted on having you on my show is because you know more than the regular person about how to bring about policy, what I call on this channel practical politics.
Okay.
But until we get there, please explain a little bit how the practical politics work. What is the parliamentary system here in Israel? What is the power that the Prime Minister, what the MPs can do?
Okay.
How the Knesset works, how the intricacy of the,
Okay.
or how it is supposed to work first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once every 4 years we go and vote for the parliament. We don't vote for a president or a prime minister. We have a party system. We have something about 8, 9 or 10 parties usually go into the parliament. 120 seats total.
Unicameral parliament.
Unicameral, yeah.
What's the minimum threshold?
The minimum threshold now is 3.25%, which is 4 seats. After the votes are counted, the biggest party gets the chance to form a coalition. If they can do it, they form a coalition. Then the government is sworn in. And that's about it. We have the biggest party in Israel is the Likud party. It's my party. It has 30 seats, which is a quarter, which means we have to have a broad coalition. We have a coalition with Orthodox parties and parties which are more right-wing and some populist parties. So on the policy issue, it's very difficult to promote policy that will get everyone happy, and that's for the parliament.
In some circles, it says that the policy that makes no one happy, that's usually the result of
Yes, it probably is what happens. We have some things that are stuck in this parliamentary gridlock since the formation of the state. Mm-hmm. For example, things of separation of Judaism and state,
and
what you call secular law, what you call the separation of church and state,
the separation
which is
of synagogue and state.
Yes,
is not.
Yes, because synagogue is a place and the church is an organization. Yes, but separate between religious ideas and practices and culture issues are. Status quo here for more than 70 years, haven't changed. The parties that are in the middle, being populist or being religious parties, are very strong because they always get a swing vote. And that's
pretty much it. All right.
Yeah.
So you said you do lobbying.
Yes.
To the extent that you can. Now you did tell me in broader details, but to the extent that you can, please explain to my audience how this works. And the reason I'm asking is because many of you all out there have asked me, oh, but look, what do you mean just call the MP? And just call the MP.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
does that work?
You call the MP. You say, usually, even if you have some power or some caucus or some people that you can say, okay, we're a large group, we're a bloc voter, or if you don't have a single vote, even if you don't know who are you going to vote, usually you can just pick up the phone and talk to your representative or your party or your local official politicians in democratic countries. They want to listen. They are eager to understand. In many cases, they're not smarter than the average person. In many cases, they're good people. They want to do the right thing. If someone comes over and wants to persuade them, usually it's what happens. The other thing you can and should do is write articles. Write in the newspaper, tweet about it, write it on Facebook, and then send it to the politicians. Say,
how much effect does social media activism actually have?
A lot.
Really?
In Israel, for example, many of I don't know if you have Facebook celebrities.
They exist everywhere.
Yes, Facebook celebrities get a lot of even political Facebook celebrities get a lot more likes than unknown members of parliament.
Oh yeah.
People who write on Facebook and say and get some traffic and say, okay, we want to. I know you have a problem with some smoking laws, and you say, okay, we have a petition. We wrote about it. I got likes. We're interested to change it. Politicians will listen to you, either if they're on your party or another party. Other important people are high-level, what's the word, unelected officials. They also want to listen. If they are high-level bureaucrats, usually they're open-minded. People are open-minded. We're not in the 70s. The communist era is over. People usually, yes. If we go, yes, we're deep inside socialist rule, but people usually will listen to you. Be nice. It's very, very important. If you talk to someone who's on your side but you're unhappy with them, or on the other side and you are not happy with them. Usually you are not happy if you pick up the phone. Be nice and be polite. The first rule of dealing with politicians is don't be a douche. It's very important because some people do it and...
What do you mean? You can't just call them Hitler and they're listening to you?
Yes, you can't call them Hitler. Try offering middle grounds. Okay.
Or at least what can be sold as a middle ground.
Yes. Listen to them, okay? If they are not listening to you, say thank you for your time. Move on. A very, very important thing is forming a coalition with other peoples and other groups. These informal coalitions are very, very important. Find friends. If, for example, as you told me, you had a problem with laws restricting smoking in bars. Okay, so you have to get some bar owners but smokers. But for example, what I would do is find non-smokers that want to go out with their friends. Okay, so form these coalitions. If you have a lot of people calling at once to a parliament member or his aides or her aides, okay, and they have if there's a vote on the next day or 2 days later and they get 100 phone calls, they will postpone the vote. They will have a chance to interfere. So
yeah, it works pretty much like the old-time newspapers. 100 letters is assumed to mean at least 10,000 readers.
Yes.
And it pretty much works similarly.
Yes, exactly. Just call them, text them. If you're nice, if politicians recognize that you have a big network, that you can form coalitions, and you are someone that they want, after all, they're people too. They want to have coffee with.
Well, some communists, I would think.
Okay, I wouldn't know about that, but people are usually nice if you're nice to them, if they know you have some strength, some coalition. If you give good arguments, they will want to listen to you. After a while, they will call you before you call them. Okay? In Israel, there are a lot of cases that ministers and parliament call all the ordinary people and tell them, what do you think? Okay, I have this vote, I don't know what to do. Okay, please advise me.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and even before we started the interview, you told me something that really stuck with me, that well, not most, but definitely a significant minority of politicians on many issues simply don't know what to do.
Yes.
It's not that they're evil, it's not that they're corrupt, it's not that they're stupid, they just simply don't know, because, well, nobody can know everything about everything.
Exactly. Most politicians go into politics or get elected, especially in Israel, by pure chance. In my party, in the Likud party, someone has a very interesting issue that he promotes, or has some local votes, and he gets elected in the primaries, and he becomes a member of parliament, and a day after he's sworn in, he has no idea what he has to do. Okay, usually new members of parliament don't know the protocols, don't know when the votes are, how they should vote.
What is the procedure to get to a vote?
Yes, exactly. If you know them, by the way, in advance, if you help them before they get elected, or if you talk to them before they get elected, they will trust you. They will seek your advice. They may hire you. But in most cases on the subject, most members of parliament don't know the issues. They have several aides which usually are there not to make decisions for them, but to aid them, and the jobs of the aides are usually to find people like you that can explain to them. Okay, you go to the politician, you say, we want to get less regulations on restaurants, and they will say, okay, that's interesting, what did you have in mind? And you bring some restaurant owners and some customers, and you say, okay, this is like that, and they will, in a lot of cases, by the way, you won't get oppositions because the other side might not even lobby for it. Okay, the fire marshals usually don't lobby. Okay, they get told
what to do and what not.
Yes. The other very, very important thing is a lot of the discussions are public. In Israel, it's very you have a lot of politicians that write on Facebook what they're doing or what they're gonna do, and if they have hundreds of comments saying the other thing politely, it's very important. There are debates in committees. You have open committee hearings. Okay, so it's important. If you have an issue, go register, talk. In Israel, it's very easy. You pick up the phone, you say, I'm a restaurant owner, I want to speak. Tomorrow in the committee, they will let you in. I hope it's the same.
Well, it's a bit difficult because not all committees are open in Romania, and it's the same thing in Hungary. But there are places in Europe, and our audience is pretty global. So in many places, it is pretty much like
yes, go and testify before committees. Say, bring articles. If you have in Israel, in the United States, there are a lot of professional institutes that will give you background information.
And papers and white papers and working papers and all of that, yes. This is something we really need in Europe, peeps. We really don't have in Europe enough institutes to deal with our side of the argument.
Exactly. Form the think tanks. In Israel, there are like 20 leftist think tanks. We have like 2 on the right. In the United States, it's more balanced. You have Cato, you have Heritage Institute, you have...
and the Brookings on the left. And
yes, exactly, which is not exactly on the left. They have an actual center there.
Oh, yeah.
In the Institute, you have Hoover Institute. You have a lot of... by the way, you can contact them. They will help you. In the United States, there is an institute that is called Leadership Institute, which will help you address the public and address politicians, and they will do it for free. You can invite them to your country.
Yeah, and it happened. For Capital Research Institute did some work on Central and Eastern Europe, on the intermarium, even on specific countries. And oftentimes these institutes might have already done the research for you for your own country. I mean, this is
another thing that is very, very important is keep in touch with journalists. If someone wrote an article, a journalist, about, well, for example, congestion pricing, okay, which is my sort of area of expertise in, as an economist. You see a journalist 3 years ago wrote an article, call them, say, I read your article. There will be journalists love to get this phone call. I read your article. Did you have people agreeing with you? What did other people think? I'm promoting it. What do you think about it? Ask questions. Be nice and genuine to people. Form these networks of academics and journalists and business owners, especially for a policy you want to promote. Or, for example, on one day I want to promote something that I have people that are religious, very religious, that are also interested in them, when we can form a coalition. And on the next day it's a secular idea, and we can form another coalition. Okay, so
yeah, this is something that particularly in Europe, to a certain extent in the US too, but particularly in Europe, there are plenty of individuals who are into this. We spoke before we turned on the cameras, the no true Scotsman thing.
Exactly.
Oh, I will never work alongside with a hardline religious. Or the other way around, hardline religionists are, oh, I'll never work with an atheist. And I'm like, well, how about we form the coalitions on issue by issue?
Yes,
for instance, on the issue of opposing transgender hormonal treatment to children. You have lesbian feminists working alongside with the Catholic Church, and that was presented as something weird. And I'm like, no, it's not weird. You know, some issues are very cross-boundary.
Know how to build your coalition. Me personally, I'll try to be agnostic on things that I don't understand, or so. Try to be easygoing with other people. There's no true Scotsman, which is a plague among libertarians. It's not very good. Find ways to settle and promote specific policy issues and not the huge ideology.
Yeah, because the huge ideology is at the end of the day the sum total of specific policies. So
yes,
in many ways, for sure.
Try not converting people into. Well, if you do if you do public outreach, yes, talk about ideology. If you want to bring policy forward, don't try to convert people. Try to say, okay, I believe in this idea. If you're open to it, let's try working on it together.
Right. You said earlier that on many issues you will not find opposition to it. Now, it was a specific example with the fire brigade, but in general, I found that throughout my work in Romania, this to be true. Oftentimes the opposition doesn't even know that that particular regulation even exists.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let alone know that there is someone like me who wants to lobby against it, and by the time they figure it out, it's usually too late.
Yeah.
But in general, let's talk a little bit about the opposition, because the left and the right in Israel are slightly different in some ways and very similar in many other ways to how they are in Europe. So what are the main differences between the mainstream right and the mainstream left in Israel?
So the main reason that people in Israel vote are security issues and peace issues and things like Zionism and Judaism. People don't usually go or vote on the economic ticket, and it's a problem because it makes it very difficult to promote economical ideas and policies. If on security issues we have, for example, 75% on the right and 25% on the left. On economical issues we have 75% on the left and 25% on the right. And furthermore, left policies are promoted by very, very strong interest groups. And the main problem is those interest groups. In Israel we have very, very strong unions. It's a huge problem. We have laws that protect unions going back to the Ottoman Empire. We are the only country in the world that has Ottoman law that protects, we call it the history root, it's the union of unions, which we can talk about for hours. We have very, very strong agricultural
regulations.
Regulations, yes. The tariffs are very high because the agricultural interest group is very, very strong. Now, because especially in the Likud party, which is the ruling party, we have primaries. Interest groups can register for the party very easily. And for us liberals, it's very hard because of something called public choice theory. I don't know if you explained it. For someone who wants, who raises here pineapples, for example, in Israel, it's easy for him to say, I will go into the Likud party with all my friends who are farmers, and we will vote for a bloc, because for each of us, it's thousands of dollars of profit for this individual vote. But for the general public, they will say, I won't go and register for a party and pay party fees to get my pineapples cheaper for 100 shekels a year. Okay, we have a problem of general public not getting involved. So those special interest groups are very strong.
Disproportionate amount of power
relative
to their size.
Yes, it's the same.
Same everywhere, in every democracy. Yeah.
In the United States, we have teachers unions and
and the oil unions in Romania, and again the teachers union in France, the transportation union in the UK, and so on and so
exactly,
forth.
Exactly. So
France is the whole country is a union. So.
Yes, but looking at from a legal point of view, it's worse here than in France. It's just terrible. So the balance of power is not on our side, but we try. We have some very good members of parliament in this session who are completely libertarian, and they do a good job.
You mentioned the unions from the Ottoman era. Now, I know this story quite well. Mr. OM, who connected us together for this show, told me everything there is to know about it on our way to Golan Heights. You have a lot of time.
Okay.
But for my audience, please explain as briefly as possible, because that's a really interesting subtopic, because the idea of having Ottoman law still in function somewhere in the world, it's interesting per se. Not even Northern Cyprus has it.
We have an organization in Israel called the Histadrut. There are several of them in different fields, and there are what is considered an Ottoman cooperation, which means cooperative, yes, which means they answer absolutely to no one. They don't have to disclose their files. There are other laws that protect them. For example, if you have just a third of the people in a workplace that want to join the union, everyone has to join this union and pay union fees. Just a third. In most places there are half. There is, of course, no right to work in Israel, which is
right to work in the American sense.
In the American sense, yes, the right to work. If you're on public sector, of course, you're a member of Histadrut. They have some 400,000 members. Their annual
population 8 million. So keep that in mind.
Their budget, which is classified, but we get it because of leaks, is something around. In dollars, it would be $180 million, There
$180 million.
annually, yes. This is only things we can get, and this is all money that is spent to lobby against us. They don't have anything else to do but collect fees. Yes, and of course people in the media are either unionized or leftists. I guess the media is on the left in Europe as well.
Heavily on the left.
Yes, so
that's why we do these kinds of
yes,
things.
exactly. And
we are the media that is not on the left.
We are the media that is not on the left, and it's very hard for us to even get public outreach and to say, okay, look at what's going on. All the public sector, of course, is unionized. All the ports, the airports, the railways, the buses, everything is unionized very aggressively. There are no restrictions on strikes. Anyone can strike anytime, and even strikes that are considered illegal are not actually illegal. We have special courts for labor disputes, which is not part of the general court system, which is also officially and not officially controlled by the Histadrut. So if a worker says something, the court will back them down. So it's very hard to employ anyone in Israel,
and especially to fire anyone.
And especially to fire anyone in Israel. If you're on the private sector and your business gets unionized, you're probably going to get bankrupt. There are two interesting cases. One is a restaurant here in Tel Aviv. The worker got unionized. They went on strike. They got pay raises that the owners could not afford, and of course the restaurant closed. On the other hand, we have a company called SodaStream, which is, I think it's popular around the world. They make this soda, bubbly water contraptions.
Tonic
yes,
water, yeah.
Yes, but they don't sell the water. They sell the device that make water tonic. And the unions want to get into that company, and there was a great resistance over it. And this is one of the maybe several cases in which the owners won. And this company was sold for billions of dollars. They succeeded. They made a huge exit. So this is the difference.
How do you sell to the public? And this is not just how do you personally sell, but also the group you're part in and the networks you're. How do you sell to the public what is to me, and obviously not for everyone, but what is to me the obvious message that unionization kills business, unionization keeps the prices high? I mean, one of the reasons this country is so expensive is probably because of the union and the taxes. The taxes are high here. Not as bad as Denmark, but still quite high.
Yeah. Okay, so by the way, they are high because you have to pay huge wages for public sector employees.
Yeah, of course.
And
which
because
are also unionized.
Because they are unionized, the wages are high. Yes, are too high. So what was the question again?
So how do you sell to the public? I would go as far as to say an anti-union message, but at the very least, the idea that look, unions are actually a problem.
You speak. The main you just talk to people. You do YouTube videos. You write in your local newspaper, in websites. There's nothing much you can do except talk. You try to organize business owners. Usually small business owners are your best allies on about anything that's
the theory, but in practice I've had it depended on an issue, admittedly, but on many issues I've had problems convincing business owners to lobby in their own interest in the end. I mean, I didn't even want money from them. I just want, look, I want you to stand up for yourself.
Yes, it's hard because they're usually suffering. Yes, they have to maintain their business, and it's hard to lobby. So yes, talk about it. Write on Facebook. We live in a very interesting time. We have the internet. The internet is on our side, even if it doesn't seem that
It
that
has
way.
been the great equalizer in the public debate for sure.
Just talk. Write to your newspaper. Write articles to websites. Study the subject. Give lectures. Do outreach. If you're a teacher, talk to your students. Pick up a booth and in the university. Give away flyers. Build clubs. Things like that.
Yeah, this is the thing with the local newspapers that you mentioned. A lot of the people who are into ideas similar to ours,
Yes.
and they hang around on YouTube and whatnot, they do tend to forget that most people still do read the local newspaper. As a result, most of the people with the ideas similar to us don't even consider writing for the local newspaper.
Yes.
How influential is that here?
We have local. Well, Israel is a local place.
It's
yes.
a local city.
Yes,
it's a big city.
It's a big city. So I think in Europe it will be more popular. But right, one of the reasons you should write, it's not only because people read what you write, but because you get into the news cycle, and it's very important. It has two different effects. If you say to a parliament member, for example, that this idea, I want to promote this idea, and you say, hey, I wrote an article about this idea. The idea that you can quote yourself on others gets you into the news cycle and revalidates your opinions. If it's, does it make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, this guy. Sometimes we people from my network, we oftentimes criticize the European Commission for their ventriloquism. I mean, basically that they speak with themselves, about policy thought about by themselves. But that thing actually works, and we should do it ourselves too. Oftentimes, so sure, if you only do that, then it becomes a circle jerk. But if you, sometimes it actually works, especially if you get into it.
Yeah, well, things that get out. If you can quote, if you get yourself published in a website, in a newspaper, and then you go on Facebook and you put a picture of the article you wrote, it would be more effective than if you wrote the article yourself. So try to get in the news cycle. Try quoting your friends, and this cycling idea, put the picture of the article on Twitter. It's more effective than this news media cycles works very well for the left. They practice on it, they teach it. For some reason we don't do it. We should write and then quote yourself. It's very important.
Yeah. One last question that is more cultural. I don't know how versed you are in the culture war, but you mentioned earlier that in this country about 75% are on the right when issues of security, which means basically
more or less, yes, without getting into the details, yes.
But also around 3/4 are on the left on the issues of economics. How did that happen? Why are there so many people on the left in this country and economically? And the reason I'm asking you is because my first view in Tel Aviv, when I was arriving by bus from Jerusalem, as I told you before, we told a camera, long border crossing, whatever. But as the bus was getting into Tel Aviv, the first thing I saw was a green building that said properties organized theft. And I'm like, oh yeah, welcome to Tel Aviv, there's commie propaganda. And then there a bit further down the road, another communist message. Why? How did that happen?
Okay, so there are there are several reasons. The first is that this country was built by socialists. The early Zionists were socialists, and they prosecuted right-wing Zionists from the early days to the days of Ben Gurion, up to the 70s, and they built those tremendous institutions in academia, in Histadrut, which we talked about, in youth movements, which are all socialist. Well, 95.
Almost all of them.
Yes. We have strong, even inside the army, and inside the media. So they got institutionalized. The other thing is, and of course in the education system, if you have unionized teachers, you won't be able to get free messages across.
Because they will always be on the other side.
Well, they won't be on your side.
Oh, yeah,
okay,
for sure.
We should help the poor. We should. The government can help, but it won't. This sort of rhetoric, yes. So because the left has control of the institutions, and when I say institutions, some of them are real institutions, some of them are informal institutions.
This channel is an informal institution.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because they have control of institutions. If you look at think tanks in Israel, you have 20, 30, 40 think tanks that are on the left. We have 2 on the right. If you look at NGOs,
almost all of them leftist.
Almost all of them leftist.
Perhaps with the exception of the Orthodox religious ones and maybe a few others.
Well, yeah, but they do
those are
religious
economically
things. Yes.
leftist most of the time.
Well, they usually don't do economics.
Don't do economics at all, yes.
Yeah, so the problem is institutions, and the way to fight it is form institutions of your own, guys. Okay, form clubs, form NGOs, okay? Go to positions in academia.
Yeah, we don't do infiltration of academia almost at all.
You don't. Yes, because usually this thing is in Israel. If you go out on the army, if you're a young man that wants to advance in life, if you're on the right, you probably go into high tech. You go to work. If you're on the left,
conservatives work. The left is busy with the activism.
Yes. Usually right wing. So try to do something. Try to form your institutions, your clubs, write about it, and that's about it. Donate, give some money to causes you believe in. Raise money. Don't be shy about raising money, which is very important.
Yeah, there is, for instance, one very nice publication in Romania that has gotten very influential, even though it doesn't have a high readership, but it has an influential readership. And the guy who runs it, I oftentimes try to persuade him, look, put some more articles in which you ask for money so you can develop. He's like, and as you said, he's shy about it. What do you mean? It looks like begging. And I'm like, well, yeah, so...
Yeah, look at it as a product. People like to read those things.
There you go, yes.
You will find allies.
Yeah, because you said that the left has control of the institution, and I totally agree with that. But this will come as a surprise to a certain section of our audience, because it basically sounds like a retelling of the story of the United States and the retelling of the story of many other countries, which also have been over time become very leftist because the left has acquired control of the institutions.
Yes.
But in Israel it's a little bit different, because at least officially the right has been sort of in power for many years continuously, and yet this hasn't changed. The deep state of the institutions has resisted. How did that happen?
Well, when we have something. I'll try to find some good explanation. There isn't one. Sometimes we elected not the strongest people that we could. Sometimes the left asserted control through the legal system. We see it in the United States now, with the judge.
Kavanaugh got confirmed eventually.
Eventually, yes. And before that, with FBI investigations and things like that. We don't use the same techniques that they use, that the left uses.
We're kind of shy on using that kind of.
Yes.
We think it's a bit immoral. We think maybe it's a bit too far.
And
I'm the radical loon who always says, maybe we should.
I don't know. Again, people. By the way, for example, if you look at the law, usually if you're leaning to the right, you will go to the private sector, and if you're on the left, you will become a public defender, for example, and then you advance and become a judge and things. If human rights are important to you from a leftist point of view, you will pick a different career, and then we see that in academia, for example, there are 40 researchers to 1 in many studies, on the left versus to the right.
Yes,
so
yes. Yeah, so
it's difficult, yeah. So
one final question.
Yes.
This is very similar to the message that I've been promoting for quite some time now, and the main issue that I always have with people who, you know, they agree, they say, okay, fine, let's work on creating institutions and whatnot, but after a while they get on the internet we call it black-pilled, but in general I guess I would call it demoralized, or simply they get fed up with it and say, oh look, there's nothing we can do, and they just give up. How do you combat, how do you what is your idea of keeping people engaged?
Okay, it depends on whom you're talking to. If you can make it into a career, if it interests you, so try to find a way to get paid for it. If you're a professional, it's easier. If you can get money for promoting the things you love, it will be easier, of course, than being a volunteer. If not, try to deal with several small issues.
No, but it's not the money that is usually the problem. It's usually the mental toll that it takes on people, and
the money fixes it.
It does it?
Yes. If you become a parliamentary aide, if you work for an institution, if you have a job in academia, on these cases, of course, if you can make a living out of it, it's very important. If you cannot make a living, try to stick to a certain issue. Okay, things usually become very, very time-consuming. Try to do it moderately. If we go back to small businesses, try fighting for a single issue. Okay, go to a single committee, write a single article. So
it's basically just an issue of pacing. That's what you're saying.
Try to pace yourself. On the left, it's easier because they all get paid for it.
Yeah,
they all get, the institutions pay them. And if you're a union organizer, so a union pays for you to unionize the people. But if you're against unions, no one will pay you to kick unions out.
Or to lobby against them.
It's that's inequality of.
Oh yeah, of course. Here are two right-wingers who are complaining about inequality.
Yes.
In Tel Aviv, which is the friendliest. What is that? The most vegan-friendly city in the world, or the second business?
Yes, which I'm very happy for, because it keeps the prices of meat down.
Yeah. I've noticed that meat is cheaper here than it is in Germany.
It wasn't until half a year ago when they lowered tariffs. And meat was very expensive, and it became cheaper overnight because they lowered tariffs.
Who would have thought if you cut taxes?
And the leftists said this will never happen, and here you go. You have cheaper burgers, and they say no, we're vegan.
Who would have thought that if you cut taxes, the standard of living of people increases, and the same amount of money will buy more?
Yes. No one. It's a new idea. No one thought about it.
Yeah. Who would have thought? I mean, maybe the peeps at the Austro-Somalia Institute thought about it.
Yes, the Austro-Somalia Institute for Advancement of Humanity.
Right. All right, Yonatan. Thanks a lot for coming, especially at this late hour. It's actually not that late, but it looks late a little bit. Thanks a lot.
It's still happy hour.
Maybe we could grab something to drink afterwards. But first, I'll take my gear up to the Austro-Somalia. Cool. Speaking about it, thanks a lot to the Austro-Somalia Institute for making most of the content you'll be seeing from Israel within the next few weeks. I have no idea when I'll publish this, but most of the content was possible for the most part thanks to the help offered by the Austro-Somalia Institute. Otherwise, most of these things would have have never been possible. Not this year anyway. It would have been possible maybe next year.
Okay.
All right. So with all that being said, thanks a lot for coming to my show.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully next year or 2 years from now, we'll be meeting again and we'll be talking about the progress we accomplished in each of our countries.
I hope so. And I want to invite every one of you to visit Israel. It's a lovely country.
It is, and it is remarkably safe. Well, I guess except Ramallah, but that's a separate story for another day. But other than that, it's a very safe. Yesterday, I had a very long walk into the old city, and despite of all the stories being told about the old city is really nice. All right, then with all that being said, see you all soon.
See you.